Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new episode. Today, we're going to be talking about children's behavior and how frustrating sometimes it can seem, and what's the scientific metaphysic or metaphysical science take on all of that. I just want to let you know and remind everybody that we are sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. You can go to our website at scientificmetaphysics.org, and where you can get materials, and you can also see other activities that you can participate in and things like that. So without any further ado, welcome, Betty. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks.
Excellent. So what would you like to say to just kick this off in terms of what the overall problem statement is that we're going to be talking about? What is it that seems to be the trouble spot for people with kids?
Well,
Kids?
it's the same problem that we have in relationships with anybody. We tend to think that there's something out there that we have to relate to and figure out how to work with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the fact is that you keep in mind just what makes you tick. You know, there are a lot of things that we could fuss about with our own behavior, but wouldn't we rather have all of that pointed out to us in a way that has value for us, like confident that all is well and that love is present, saying, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. If you speak nicely, you'll get nicely back. And if you don't, you can allow it to be and go on being nice.
Okay.
So when you're working with children, they respond really rather well to a good example, to love and kindness and respect, the same thing we respond to. Because actually, this is our own infinite being seeing the allness that includes.
Mm-hmm.
And in human living, that looks like lots of ages,
Right.
young, old, and the middle class, and all the rest of it.
Right.
But it's always one being. And we're dealing with ourselves and our infinite capacity to be all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So looking at it from that perspective, notwithstanding what can be super annoying sometimes with children, but at any rate, here we go. In your book, Mind is the Athlete, on page 17, you say children's curiosity is alive and insatiable, unlike adult inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
Say more about that.
Small children are going to poke around and fuss, be really curious about all kinds of things. You watch babies looking at their toes, examining their fingers, chewing on them, the whole bit.
Right.
They're discovering a whole new world. And the fact that we get a little bit older and walk around going to school and having jobs and whatever we do is not too different. But we live it differently because we think it's going on outside of us. The baby knows it's talking to itself. It's exploring itself. We forget that and think, well, the self is only this little body. All of the rest of it is out there somewhere. And I have to somehow figure that out. You know?
Yeah.
So in dealing with children, we tend to use the adult level of what's acceptable and then insist that kids behave that way. And the truth of the matter is, what we would really like to see at every stage of our own development is, how would love handle this? What's the kind, generous, wonderful way that I can live this exchange of information?
Well, that would be for any relationship, wouldn't it?
Of course. And it relates to children.
Mm-hmm.
We forget that. We think they're little and we know better and we're going to tell them. And they're not going to respond to that very well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we run into all kinds of things, just like we would run into if somebody treated us like we were 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't like that at all. Well, they don't either.
Okay.
So, but it's a matter of really understanding that who you're dealing with is yourself. and you want to address it in a way that has value.
Right.
And the value is in seeing that right here, right now, the God idea, love, is self-expressing. And this is what it looks like.
Right.
Oh, well.
Yep. Nice. Okay. And Mind is the Athlete, your book. You also say, childlike wondering opens windows of opportunity for growth and development in self-discovery.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're talking to adults in that statement.
Well, I wrote the book for adults, I think. But you can see what it's saying. At any age, wondering, willingness to explore, curiosity about what's going on is going to open a window for you to expand. Oh, and what you forget is that what the expansion is all about is your own being, because we are the world we walk through. So it's always our own being that we're expanding, looking like our experience of children, looking like our experience of a job, looking like anything that you want to say. But in dealing with children, which is today's subject, we forget that we're still talking to ourselves. And we're still looking for the value in how can I address this picture intelligently, and successfully.
Yeah, it reminds me of curiosity we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Being curious, and what that can do. And I think even in communication, being curious. Well, why would they say that? What might be behind that before we jump to a conclusion or anything else? But curiosity can also do quite well here.
Well, but you know that the other thing, it gives you a little patience with what the thing looks like. When you look at a little kid behaving one way or another, when you recognize that that little kid is curious about something, satisfied or not satisfied with what he's finding out, and responding to his view, then you want to respond with the generative principle that it's love self-expressing, calling itself a little kid. It's my love expressing in my life,
right,
looking like this. Then I can respond in kind and deal with it. And you know, sometimes it's like a little kid that runs out in the street. If I'm the mother, I might spank that child, say, no, sir, you don't go in the street.
Right.
And that's love speaking.
Right.
You know, so where you're coming from is what I'm trying to address in dealing with families and children and other relationships.
Right. Well, in Mind is the Athlete, you also say that self is endowed with a wisdom that exceeds our human capacity and provides guidance when attended to.
Yeah, and we're talking about the divine self, the being that has Betty show up. That self. That's what's endowed with wisdom that exceeds human capacity.
Right.
And that's what's present for you to draw on as a listening in your living, working with children, working with anybody, working with relationships.
Yeah. And we've got a comment here by Jennifer Nelson. She says, little guy expands my artwork when I do art with him. He does things that I would never do. Then I look at it and go, that is strange and cool.
Yeah. And what a fun experience to have that go on that way.
Yeah.
It expands you as a living yourself as an adult, but it also enables you to include the little guy, because that's also you living yourself fully.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, both of you then love the experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy said, the education of children should form habits of obedience to moral and spiritual law with which to meet belief in physical laws, which breeds disease. Now, you're going to have to unpack that because it doesn't sound very fun in any way, shape, or form. So,
well, Mrs. Eddy was tackling the whole system of raising children and so on. And what the deal is is in living yourself successfully and satisfactorily and fulfillingly, if I can use that word. There's a discipline involved.
Right.
There's a discipline in staying with what this thing is all about. Am I a two-legged animal stuck with an impossible situation, struggling to make a living, struggling to live a normal life, normal in quotes? Or is there something more going on here? And scientific metaphysics says that there is a divinity shaping our ends, which I've quoted before from Shakespeare. Right. There is divine being itself being, calling itself Betty or Kim or Jennifer or whatever.
So the education of children should form habits of obedience
to moral and spiritual laws. And that's what's being developed when you respond with love in tackling whatever's showing up in the picture.
Okay.
But keep in mind, the picture is a picture of the immediate past. It's already over. So you don't pounce on it like there's something you can fix so that tomorrow it'll be different. What you're addressing is what's present that will show up tomorrow beautifully.
Right. Yeah. And what's interesting, Jennifer also says, when the little monster comes out and screams and scowls and has a giant fit, not so easy.
Only because you think the monster's out there, instead of taking a look at yourself and saying, now, wait a minute, little monster. How am I living myself that I have that look going on?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
can you see, just let me finish with that thought for a minute, because that attitude, when I say, how am I living myself that I have that look coming on, that takes on the picture that I'm right now condemning, not approving, and saying, well, what in the world? And then I get the message, oh, you're living yourself as if that were separate, and you have to do something about that. Anything that's about tells you that you're standing in language, playing in the past, have no power, and will not be effective.
Right.
So you leave that basis of belief alone. You say, oh, for heaven's sakes. And then you say, what's present is being whole, perfect, divine love present, meeting every need. And your listening will give you a response that will handle that picture.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Right. All right. Mary Baker Eddy goes on to say in Science and Health, taking less thought for your life, what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink.
Oh.
And then it goes on, for your body, what ye shall put on will do much more for the health of the rising generation than you dream. So let's just go back and go through this again. So taking less thought for your life, what you shall eat, what you shall drink, or for your body, what you shall put on, will do much more for the health of the rising generation than you dream.
Yep.
So
you don't want to fuss with what you're eating, what you're wearing, how you're looking, the circumstances of human living. We want to pay attention to the opportunity that's present to be self-expressed, to be joyous, to be free, to be kind. And you see that all coming back to you as you live it.
Okay. Then in Science and Health, Mrs. Eddy also says our false views of life hide eternal harmony and produce the ills of which we complain.
Yeah, and the false view is thinking something out there is doing something to me.
Or now we complain.
A complaint, yeah. Or even responsible for my well-being. Or doing something nice for me. There's nothing outside of my being. Mary Baker Eddy says, I am all. And the knowledge of aught beside myself is impossible. So when I kid myself that I'm dealing with something separate, I've got no science to practice.
Right.
The fact is that all is infinite mind right now, intelligently functioning. And this
Yeah.
is the way it looks.
Right. Very good. Okay, and we've got another comment. These are fun. Oh, it's from Jennifer Nelson again. She says, I'm concerned about the picture for him in school. Those behaviors in school take faculty off the larger classroom, concerned about him getting kicked out.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we're talking about. We want to respond to him so that he begins to see himself as responsible for his behavior, responsible for the behavior that looks like it's coming to him, as well as going out from him.
Mm-hmm.
When the classroom is interrupted, that's his classroom he's interrupting.
Mm-hmm.
His opportunity to be healthy, wealthy, and wise is being sidetracked by the belief that there's something over there that he doesn't approve of, or he isn't getting enough attention from, or they aren't listening to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs to listen to himself.
Mm-hmm.
Because in fact, that's all that's going on.
Right.
And in my dealing with him, I'm listening to myself because I can see that I interrupt people. I can see somebody laughing about that one. And I've learned that it doesn't work. It's not a winning formula for me. So I've had to learn to listen more and close my mouth more so that I don't do that, so that I'm working with myself in my self-expression. And it looks like somebody else is contributing to me. But that's me informing on myself and saying, thank you. On we go.
And Jennifer says, yes, self-responsibility.
All the way. Thank
All
you.
the way. Yeah.
And thank you, Jennifer.
And now in miscellaneous writings, Mary Baker Eddy says, man's real life or existence is in harmony with life, capital L, and its glorious phenomena.
Yeah. So man's real life is divine being in harmony with the God idea, all that's going on, including the way it looks, the way it appears in my daily living. I'm in harmony with what's showing up in my life. If I live myself complaining, I've interrupted the harmony, haven't I? If I live myself unsatisfied and feeling unfulfilled and feeling resentful and feeling critical and judgmental and opinionated, all of that stuff, then I'm interrupting the harmony of one thing going on. All is infinite mind, infinitely manifest. And this is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to know that what's going on, looking like out there, looking like over here, looking like up there, wherever, is divine love meeting the human need. And this is what it looks like. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If it's love that I'm working with, I've got no problems.
Right. Okay. So also in miscellaneous writings, Mary Baker Eddy says, how shall we reach our true selves? And to your answer, through love.
That's part of the quote. That's not my answer.
No, I know, but you just said it. Love meets the human need. So I was just saying, how shall we reach our true selves? Through love.
That's right. And through the recognition that that love is being itself, calling itself Betty or Kim or Jennifer or Henry.
Right.
All is infinite mind. One thing going on perfectly.
Right. And Jennifer says, just love him so much and want his success with others who only see some hurtful stuff coming at them and who don't yet care about him as much.
Yeah, well, the hang up there is loving him. You've got two things going on. You want to see that love generates the universe I walk through. It's all the language of love. It isn't personal.
Yeah. Okay.
And when you can see that, then you can allow him to learn the way he has to learn.
Right.
And he's pointing out the way all the way, everything that happens.
Right.
And
But
so
I
am
think but I think to this whole point, which is what this is such a good statement, I think the whole point here is, as adults, those little ones that we adore and love, that we know are going through whatever they're going through,
Yeah.
we want to spare them their growing pains
You
so
can't
that
do it.
everyone else can see how awesome they are,
Mhm.
right? And so you just kind of want to you want to kind of guide and sidestep some of that a little bit sometimes, just to
Well, and we do, but you really want to know within yourself that what's going on is one life living,
Mm-hmm.
whole and perfect and complete,
Right.
so that the actual experience of living is going to show up taking you in the direction you need to go to be healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Now, in her 1962 Evanston seminar, which we have on recorded CDs, Mrs. Laird said, "The mental nature of being means that every human situation involves identifying thinking, mind action versus human belief."
Yeah.
So unpack that, because so the mental nature of being, that every human situation evolves identifying thinking.
Well, see, the mental nature of being is that every human situation evolves identifying thinking. Thinking is a thing that mind is doing, and mind action is man.
Okay.
So
Right.
that action called thinking constitutes what we call a little child,
Mm-hmm.
constitutes what we call an adult,
Mm-hmm.
constitutes what we call human beings.
Yeah.
If that divine action, which is mental in nature, is the source and condition of the whole thing, then the answer is in allowing it to be and moving on with the very highest you know, one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find yourself doing humanly what makes sense, what is the answer, and it will not be personal. It
Right.
will be universally valuable.
Right. And Jennifer does say thank you both. So
Thank you.
yep. All right. Now, in CSR, Christian Science Re-Explored by Margaret Laird, she said, "Love is the principle which confronts the division of good, capital G, into human good and bad, and through experience resolves it."
Yep. So there is a principle functioning in our everyday living.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the God idea principle: love, life, truth, intelligence, all of that. And that confronts the division, which is the paradox living of the human picture,
Mm-hmm.
the everyday stuff,
Right.
the language, if you will. And it always occurs in the mode of opposites.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always going to have as much good as I have bad, and as much bad as I have good. I'm always going to have as much right as I have wrong, as much rich as I have poor. They occur in equal amounts, and they're always present, because what they are is a human picture of wholeness. So life is lived whole and complete and fulfilled. And when I see that, I don't pay attention to the stuff that I'm looking at. I pay attention to the law,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm living, which is that all is infinite mind.
Yeah.
So all is well.
Yeah.
And Margaret Laird said a million times, I don't know why it looks that way, but on we go.
Yeah. Let's be scientists after all.
Yes. So we allow it to be, and we move on knowing what the principle is, which is that all is well.
Right.
And when I listen, I know intuitively
Yes.
what to do, how to do it, so on.
Yep. And in Christian Science Re-Explored, Margaret Laird also says, we are able to relax in the knowledge that there is a divinity, love functioning within and as ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. And that's what we've been And we can relax in that. I think that's the thing. If you're stressing out, you probably for sure have two things going on.
Right. And if you can relax with the knowledge that all is well, no matter what it looks like, and leave that picture alone, the answer will show up very clearly.
Yeah.
It's when you get into the personal attachment to how it ought to look and how you would rather have it look and what you're going to make it look like.
Right.
That's what gets you in trouble.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have from Margaret Laird, Christian Science Re-Explored, quoting George Geta in the LA Times, man's mind is the key to supremacy on earth.
And it is. And the reason that she can say it that, or he can say it that way, is because man's mind is reflective, God being. Man is the reflection of the action of God.
Yeah, so we're not talking about brain function.
Yeah, it's not a brain function. Brain function is a language saying something smart's going on, but you can't use it as a manipulator.
Okay.
Successfully.
Because it's just in language.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if anyone has any questions, if you have anything that you want to say or comment, please put those in the comment box and we will answer them. What else do you want to say about this, or what do you want to leave people with, Mom?
I really would hope that if we're approaching things from the science point of view, from the metaphysical scientific point of view, we would recognize that the divine being, that's being Betty, being Kim, being Jennifer, being children, being adults, being all that we would let that tell us intuitively what to do and how to do it and relax and enjoy it.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note then, we're going to end the episode tonight and the live stream, and we will not be having a live stream next week. So we're going to be skipping a week. But just 1 week, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we won't be here next week, but we'll be here the week after. So set your calendars for 2 weeks from today, 7:00 Central, 5:00 Pacific, and we will see you then.